We are tonight's entertainment.
You can't handle the truth.
The fire rises.
Pizza time.
You're a wizard, Harry.
So it begins.
You know how much I sacrifice?
You think that's air you're breathing?
Groovy.
I don't have friends. I got family.
We are sex people! 1, 2, 3, 4!
Craft Services.
Hello? Trent? Trent? That's right, folks. Trent Algair is still out in England, the land of Eng, if you will. I was originally planning on having a special guest, Sophia Alexis, with us here, but you're just going to have to do with little old me telling you what I've had to eat most recently. Today, I have had but 1 grain of rice because, as of recording, it is 10 a.m., and I have not been able to eat anything because I'm not that hungry. But I came home from my college apartment to my home in Bridgewater, New Jersey, and a bowl of just normal, just plain rice was sitting out, and I needed something to eat before I recorded this podcast for obvious reasons. And I think that's all I have to say. Wow, these are really weird to record when you have no one to record with. I don't know how Trent did the entire Muppet episode by himself. But with that being said, let's cue the intro. Welcome back to Craft Services, where we talk about the movies. Each week we talk about a film and hopefully have a crew member of that film to talk with us about their experience working on the picture. This week we are talking again with sound mixer Stephen Morrow for Babylon, Damien Chazelle's newest film. Came out last year. Highly controversial, but loved by many, me, hated by some. Other cowards. But yeah, we continue our conversation with Stephen Morrow. Again, we talk about more specific scenes, but we also talk about some other movies he worked on, including Little Miss Sunshine, the upcoming Maestro, Bradley Cooper's next film, and Joker 2, another Lady Gaga film. He also worked on A Star is Born. Yeah, I think this is a pretty good interview, and I think maybe we should just cue right into it. So we kind of wanted to go into some specific scenes that we thought were kind of notable. Obviously, there's the opening, half-hour-long party sequence. And if you could just sort of talk about how long that it even took to shoot, because it seems so intricate, and sort of you sort of touched on it a little bit, but just sort of the challenges of recording sound for that whole thing. Yeah, I mean, the Wallach party, the opening party of the movie, the interior was 5 days in the hotel lobby, which is the big party area. The exterior, which kind of looked like a castle in the middle of the desert, that was Palmdale. So the interior was in downtown Los Angeles. The exterior was in Palmdale at a house, and we did nights in that, and that was 3 or 4 nights because we were waiting for the sunrise for 2 days in a row to get the sunrise shot of her leaving. And we were also waiting for the sunset shot for when she pulls up and the elephant and the whole group show up. Movie wise, it's timed out very cinematically where you get to do all these, sunset, sunrise shots. There were different locations where the producer was having his party with the girl and then she ODs. That was in a whole different spot. So the entire opening party was probably a 2-week process, over 3 or 4 different locations. The challenges were, the party was chaos, and so you wanted it to be chaotic. I always try not to limit a director and say, okay, everybody has to be perfectly quiet, because that kind of ruins the mood. I like the overlaps. I like people, it being sloppy and dirty and messy, and because that's what it's going to sound like in the theater anyway, so let's get that for the actors. And so that was the challenge of let's have these party goers
going for it, because you also had live chickens and cows walking through the party. And those were all real, so it was like, you just had to like do the best you can and not sweat the the small things are just, they're going to get in the way of performances if you really try to like clamp down on everything.
Right.
Yeah.
And then another scene that, I don't know if this felt like meta for you, but the scene where Margot Robbie has to shoot the first
day of
sound. Yeah. Just shooting that, just because that was,
yeah,
it's all about the sound, I guess.
that was one of those really fun days because, for one, the guy who played Carson, who played Lloyd, the sound guy, that was his first day ever on set.
Wow.
That was his first day. And his character's name was Lloyd Morrow, named after, myself, right? Steve Morrow. And
Nice.
it's on the
Wow.
slate. It's on the slate, sound by El Morrow. And then that was just, it was one of those fun days because it was just so chaotic and funny, and like, the way that it's shot and the way that he builds the tension over the whole scene, as a crew member, you're sitting there going, okay, we're shooting her reading the lines again. We have the makeup person running around the corner, coming in, sweating her up, running out, just hiding behind a chair. It's just like, because these scenes, they're intense and there's a ton of cuts and there's a ton of things that are happening. Everybody gets, everybody in the scene gets mic'd because everybody has one line here or one line there. So those scenes are really fun. And then Carson and I have worked together. He's in Joker 2. He plays a character in there, which was a lot of fun to reunite with him. And then the whole meta of it all, in Joker, I play a sound guy named Lloyd Morrow. So
wow.
Yeah, so we turned it all around.
Recasting the role.
Yeah.
We'll look out for you in Joker 2.
Yeah, if it makes it, you
Yeah.
get lobbed out. You never know.
Fair. So another scene is Tobey Maguire at like the underground party, sort of like the Boogie Nights inspired, like firecracker in the background with like the friend or the guy off to the side. I forget if he's like sneezing or coughing. But anything sound related to that? That
was just pure chaos. We had playback for when they first go into the underground, the first levels, the guys drumming and the girls fighting in the cage, and we would do playback, and then the first AD would yell cut. We'd stop the playback, and the drummers couldn't hear him yell cut, so they would just keep drumming, and it actually sounded like we were still playing back because it was the same sound. And I'm looking at the computer going, no, we stopped. And the AD's like, cut, 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 cut. I think there's a recording of him yelling for like 30 seconds straight. And they're coming over to me and they're saying, you got to stop. I'm like, that's not me. It's the drummer's drumming. We actually had the crocodile was a live crocodile. First take was a crocodile attached to chains that were plastic chains, which we use in movies all the time. And all of a sudden it ran out of frame and broke the chains, and everybody had to stand still, wait for the animal wrangler to come in and figure that out. The set was kind of genius because each floor was the same set. We would shoot the floor, then we would move to a different, like a hallway, while they redressed. They'd take out the cage and put in the stage where the guy eats the rat. So it was the same. It was the same set, just redressed every single level, as we would go up and down the stairs.
Just another scene that came to mind, and I guess two different scenes, but they're both movie theater related scenes. One is when Manny first sees the jazz singer, and then at the end, obviously, with the movie theater there. Were you miking up any extras there, or was it just...
No, we didn't mic up any extras on that one. We mic'd the room for reactions, people laughing, clapping. But specifically miking up an extra. Once you mic up an extra, they become an actor, pay-wise. So we tend to never really mic up an extra unless the director's like, hey, have that guy say this. And then we put a mic on him, and then he gets upgraded.
Pay raise.
Yeah, exactly, pay raise. So we tend to never do that. But we'll plant mics throughout the crowd just to get their reactions. And in that scene, we gave Manny an earpiece, and he gave us a playlist that made him that emotional. And so that's what we played for him. And it was, the songs were special to him, and that's what gave him his emotion in those scenes. And so we gave him an earpiece, and he just told us what to play and when to play it.
This is for my own curiosity, but like on our wimpy film school, ZF8s, we are like our maximum amount of tracks is 8. And so like you as a professional sound mixer, like on set, what is the most amount of tracks you will ever realistically record? Or like what is what is the limitation of your machine,
Yeah, so I'm probably the worst person to ask that question. We max out at 64 tracks. I've done a couple movies where we've hit 62. Like A Star Is Born, we hit 62 a few times. We just finished a movie called Maestro about Leonard Bernstein. We maxed out at 63. I would say, though, that like if you were to average it out, I tend to stay under 30 about 99% of the time. Anything over that becomes just strange and unmanageable and weird and like, what are we doing? But I did a movie called The Way Back, and we ended up doing, that was the Ben Affleck basketball movie. We mic'd every player, every coach, and then we put the quadraphonic mic in the audience, which was the Dolby Atmos mic, so that's a 4-channel microphone. And I think on average we hit 24 tracks, every day, anytime the basketball players were there, playing a game or rehearsing, or not rehearsing, but practicing for their next match. So, but I would say, look, if you're starting in sound, 8's not a bad number. 12 is probably now the normal minimum. 8 was good, 5 years ago, but, our jobs have increasingly gotten more complex and easier to do. Like if I had to do 8 tracks, 15 years ago, it would have been a huge deal. Now it's like, 8 tracks, okay, no problem. But I think if you're starting out and you're buying equipment, it's always one of those things. It's like, you could buy the equipment for the movie you're gonna do or the movie you want to do. So which, how many times you want to spend the same amount of money. So just, if like your passion is sound, you're going to do sound forever, get at least 12 channels available. You don't have to have 12 radio mics or 12 microphones. You can slowly add those. Yeah.
And then the last scene that I kind of want to talk about was just the oneer of Jack at the party, and then he at the end where he then walks up and commits suicide. Yeah. At this point, it'll be a 6-month-old movie. But
no, this is true.
and we're 30 minutes into the interview.
Yeah. So,
exactly.
Spoiler alert. Just again another oneer and another like cool set, and just anything. Was Brad Pitt? Did he have an earpiece in?
Yeah. So actually, in this scene, we shot this in Pasadena at Tavern Green, which is an apartment building. That is, we film it all the time. We filmed it for Thank You for Smoking, where like they have the mint julep, conversation with now I can't remember his name. But anyway, we film it all the time for these kind of oldie looking things. That's the lobby of the it's an old hotel, but now turned apartment living, apartment building. And then if let's see, for that was an interesting shoot because basically the word came down that nobody could have a video monitor, nobody could watch, and only the director and the cinematographer could have a monitor, and they basically tented everybody out so nobody could see it. For that, we had to do a cue of music once he passed the kid on the stairway, and he gave him his $100 or whatever it was. That was the cue for us to start the movie, or the music in his ear, because he did have an earpiece, and that's when we did use a repeater to get it all the way down the hall, the next floor up. And that was the hard one because I had to just listen to what he was doing to take my own cue, because I couldn't have a monitor. Nobody could cue me.
Was there a
else
reason
could have a monitor.
that they?
It was just the sensitivity of the suicide. I think some people are, I think, from what I understood is that there was just a sensitivity to it, and that it wasn't something that, it was like a very personal moment for him. So, out of respect, we all just said, yeah, no problem. You don't make a big deal out of it when somebody asks something like that, because it's fairly unusual. So there's got to be a reason behind it. And if I can do the job without, begging to see it, it's like, I'll just listen to when that piece of money comes out and is handed off, and then I can hit the queue. So for me, that's where it's like, it just makes sense to do the right thing by the person asking that, having that request. Yep.
Parth, do you think it's time to move out of Babylon land into other movie territory?
Much as I love Babylon, yes.
I mean, now that we've killed off Brad,
Yeah, we've reached the logical end of the film.
That's right.
This is sort of a rapid fire. It doesn't have to be rapid, but just we've listed some of the movies you've worked on that were that are some of our personal favorites. And one of my personal favorites is Little Miss Sunshine. And if there's anything you could just tidbit about any movie we mentioned, that'd be great.
Yeah, I mean, Little Miss Sunshine. When they're doing that spin before they make it to the hotel, just imagine a 15-20 year ago me laying on the floor of that car as they're spinning, because the wireless was only as good as it was at the time. And I'm just laying there getting just all sorts of motion sick, because it's not like you're only doing the one spin and going. You're spinning it like 40 times while they repeat the dialogue, and they keep going and they keep going. And I'm just sitting there laying on the ground, mixing and just trying to listen without throwing up. So that was that was a hard one. We did that in 30 days. And we would be on and off the car all the time, depending on where we were on the location.
Did you have to lay on the ground for all of the car scenes?
No, but anytime the car was free driving with the actors in it, then yeah. So anytime you're looking out the front window, that was free driving, and so then that's when you had to join the group. The rest of the time we would tow it. Sometimes the car itself was cut in half. Like when you're on the freeway, they cut the car in half so they could dolly down between the rows of seats. And in that moment, we put up a big plexi shield because we were actually on the freeway. And the sound of trucks driving by on the I-5 freeway was horrible sometimes. So they would have to wait until there wasn't a truck blasting by, to do the dialogue. Yeah.
Another one of my favorite movies, of the last few years, it's a big dad favorite, is, Ford v Ferrari. And that's got all kinds, speaking of cars, all kinds of cool cars. If you could talk a little bit about that and a little bit about James Mangold, who I'm a big fan of.
Yeah, Mangold he's great. He's one of these guys that's just very smart, very fast on his feet, very sarcastic, and he's a lot of fun to work with. At first, when I first started working with him, it took a week or two to figure out what his personality was and when he was joking, when he wasn't. And then once you got it, it was a fun ride to be on. All those cars had Toyota or Honda engines in them, except for one or two of the main GT, the main Ford cars had some decent engines in them, but none of them were really time period accurate. So our goal on that one wasn't to record the cars, wasn't to get good sound effects of those, because we knew those were going to be replaced. Our goal was, let's get the dialogue clean, let's get it nice and, as clean as we can, and then let post-production jump in and get all the car sounds. And Post was able to find a classic car race that recreated the Le Mans race, and all the collectors in the world would get together and do it. And they convinced them, hey, can we record? Can we put microphones all over your car and record them? And they were able to do it. So that was pretty great. But the cars that were in the Ferrari factory, those were all real authentic Ferraris. We had one that was worth 40 million and one that was worth 100 million, because they were the actual cars that won the races. And it was like, wow, why would anybody give us this? We're a film crew. We're going to smash it for sure.
Or we're gonna, at the very least, lean up against it while we're eating lunch.
Oh, for sure. And that almost happened. I watched a couple grips moving a stand by it, and I'm like, oh, they don't know that's $100 million is in there.
I'm sorry we didn't ask this during the Babylon section, but it just reminded me talking about James Mangold. Is there anything you can say about Damien Chazelle's directing style? Is it given you worked with him?
His style is very like Damien Chazelle's the type of guy that knows exactly what he wants. He's made the movie; it's in his head. He's been thinking about it forever. He thinks about it nonstop, and it's the goal of the crew that he's hired to put it on film. So to me, it's a great way, because you work with directors that don't have an idea of what they want to do for the day, which is, that works for some of them. And some people know exactly what they want to do. Sometimes to a fault where you'll do 40 or 50 takes because it's not exactly what they want. And Damien leans towards that direction where it's like, it has to be exactly what he wants, but to me, it's such great, it's kind of like a nice relief where you have a director that knows what he wants, can explain to the crew what he wants, and then it's just our goal is to get it for him.
Right.
But I saw you worked on The Mule, which I think is directed by Clint Eastwood, and he's famous for like doing just one take. So while you're like on set for that, are you like, this is awesome, just like on to the next thing?
Yeah, I mean, it's just like everybody has a style. And there's ways of appreciating both styles. Like I appreciate Damien Chazelle and his desire to get exactly what he wants because honestly, like, if the film is amazing or is horrible, those type of directors, you can give 100% credit for both, right? So, and sometimes like a movie, and I'm not trashing like superhero movies, but like you do a Marvel movie and it's like, maybe it doesn't matter who the director is, and maybe it doesn't matter, certain things, because at the end of the day, the studio is going to make a Marvel movie. And so it's not that the work is harder or easier or anything like that. It's just, it's a difference between, the difference in making movies. With Clint's movies, it's almost more pressure in the sense that, you only have one or two takes. That's it. And if you don't get it, then that's it. What can you do? So yeah, it's kind of fun both ways, because you do a lot of scenes, fast on a Clint movie, and but also on a Damien movie, it's not like we're moving slow. It's just we're, a lot of the time we're shooting versus setting up. So the setups are fast, and the actual shooting of takes is the majority of your day, which is more entertaining for me because I don't work on the setups. I mostly work when the camera's rolling.
Yeah, I mean, speaking of superhero films, you're working on a super villain film, maybe did shooting complete on that? Yeah. So I don't want Warner Brothers to sort of have a target on your head, but if there's anything you could say about working on Joker 2, that would be cool.
I mean, it's just a great experience. It's just a really. It is hard to say anything about it, but the movie is. What can I say?
It's good. It's fun and good.
Yeah, no, I mean it's gonna surprise people, more like the first one did. Where nobody really knew what to expect, and I think similarly, the part 2 is going to be, I think, just as loved as the first one. It was a great shoot to work on. It was really nice people. The whole cast was just incredibly nice and generous, and that's kind of all I can say. It's a year and a half away, but there you go.
Hey, I'll get you out of the hot seat, and I'll use Lady Gaga as my through line to A Star Is Born, and just if there's anything else you could mention about that. Yeah,
no, I mean she's
not specific to her, just to move from one movie to the next.
Oh, A Star Is Born, yeah.
Joker to that.
Yeah, no, we her and I, at the beginning of A Star Is Born, it was we were figuring out how to communicate with each other because she comes from the music world, I come from the film world, and you're saying the same thing, but it's different, right? It's the same idea, but different wording. And so it took a few weeks for us to work that out communication-wise, and then everything was smooth sailing. And the benefit of that relationship going into Joker was that there was no longer that learning curve. So it was a really kind of exciting, fun, reunion.
And working on Maestro, the Bradley Cooper's next movie. Was that a cool, fun shoot?
We had a blast on that movie. I mean, to make a movie like Maestro, where Bradley got to make the movie that he's really been dreaming about ever since he was a kid, that was a fun experience. I mean, it was the same crew that we had, mostly the same crew as A Star Is Born. The cinematographer and I, Maddie Labatique, we've done a handful of movies together. We're good friends. It's a fun group. When you can go and work with your friends, that's when you just have a really good time. Yeah, that's when it becomes like, and sometimes that can become more stressful, because you want to do that much better. It's like moving your, moving furniture with your friends or moving some random person's furniture. It's like, there's more pressure on your friend's furniture because they're going to see you after you're done moving.
Yeah. Parth, do you think it's time for the Big Kahuna final question?
Yeah,
Oh boy,
I think it is.
This makes me nervous.
No reason to. The Big Kahuna final question is, what is the last great movie that you have watched?
And it can be a first-time watch or a rewatch, but it has to be great.
It has to be great.
Not just good.
Not just good shit. All right, well, it's been tough. It's been a tough few years, to be honest. I would have to say, oof, well, that's a tough one. I would have to say the one that surprised, great movie. I mean, it's like,
We've had Oscar winners.
Be bedazzled by this question.
For
well,
minutes
it's tough because
end.
of the way that the way you phrase it. The last great movie. I mean, like, I know the last movie that I really enjoyed was Nope. But I was like,
I mean, we would take in Nope.
Yeah, I mean,
you know what I mean?
We covered that on the show. We think it's great.
Yeah, I mean, to me, that's like, when I watched it, I was like, yeah, this is great. This is fun, interesting,
Yeah. Summer blockbuster.
In summer blockbuster. What else have I seen? Because there's been a lot of like, not some great movies lately.
You could use Oscar season for inspiration if that helps, or maybe that hurts my case.
Oh, you know what I did? I did watch All Quiet on the Western Front, and to me that was like, holy crap! Where did you guys come from? Like, it was like they watched 1917 and said, "Oh, hold on, hold my beer." We'll show you what World War I is all about. So to me, I think that's probably the last great, like, not a movie you want to sit down and like watch nonstop. But
no, not an easy watch.
I was like, it was a crusher. It was a crusher.
Kind of a deeply unpleasant film, but yeah,
it was deeply unpleasant, well made. Like, just like. I reached out to the production sound mixer on that, and I just said, great job. I never want to work on a movie like that. Because, like, it looked cold and muddy and miserable. There was no part of that movie that looked like that was entertaining. Yeah.
Parth, you want to bring us out?
Yeah, definitely. Thank you so much to our guest, Stephen Morrow. He's the sound mixer behind such films as Little Miss Sunshine, Ghostbusters Afterlife, Ford v Ferrari, and our film for today, Damien Chazelle's Babylon. Thank you so much for being with us.
Oh, thank you so much for having me.
What an interview. Huh? I certainly thought so. Thank you so much to our guest, Stephen Morrow, for talking with us. It was a pleasure having him on the podcast, and another sound mixer to add to the roster. I think we can say safely next week will be our discussion of Babylon, and for that one, we will definitely have guest Trent Elgair, because by God, I cannot do these alone. This is really, really weird. Thank you so much for listening. You can listen to this on all podcasting platforms such as Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, Amazon Music, Pandora, anywhere you get your podcast, we are there. You can also find us on social media on Twitter and Instagram. Those are the two that we have, where you can get updates on when the episodes have been uploaded and some fun stuff. But other than that, thank you so much for listening, and I'll see you guys next week. Bye.